Will future CPUs need two types of cores for best gaming FPS? So one fast gigahertz core and other somewhat slower heavy cache core for games that will either use or not use lots of cache. That's a confusingly phrased question, but I think I get where you're coming from. For gaming, you really want, well, multiple fast cores, so high clocked, high frequency cores with that are cache heavy. I mean, really, the 5800X3D has proven that. I think this question probably arises from like the E-core, P-core thing. Basically, for current generation gaming, you realistically only need about, we've had a long-winded answer to this question, but realistically, 8 fast cores will have you well and truly covered for all games that are out now.
Yep.
8 modern, so 8 Elder, 1200K.
Yep.
1200K, 12700, it's going to blow through all games, no performance issues at all. Then you've got the 8 E-cores. The 8 E-cores are virtually useless for gaming. In fact, they're entirely useless for gaming at this point in time because we've talked about the background tasks and all of that. The 8 P-cores on the Core i7 and Core i9 processors will have you more than covered for all games plus your background tasks. The E-cores are completely useless and redundant in that situation. Where the E-cores are invaluable is allowing Alder Lake to take on Zen 3. Without the E-cores, Intel would sort of be in the same problematic situation they've been in for, well, many generations before, since about Zen 2, is that they have unbelievably impressive gaming performance and then unbelievably weak productivity performance. So that's where the E-cores really help out. And I think with Raptor Lake, we're going to see, the rumor is a doubling of E-cores, which will see gaming improved by whatever the IPC increase is for the P-cores, but you'll get quite a significant improvement to productivity because you'll have all those extra E-cores.
Yeah, I think for this question, you really do want your P-cores to have, or your high-performance cores for whatever architecture, to have both high frequency and high cache for gaming.
Yep.
And I think it would get too complicated if you were splitting it up into, here's one bank of cores that runs at 6 gigahertz, and then you've got another bank that's got heaps of L3 cache.
I don't think that would work. There's a massive disconnect there anyway to what gives you the performance.
Yeah, and I think as well, with the 5800X3D, we did see slightly lower clock speeds when they added the extra cache relative to their highest performance CPUs. But we're talking a very small,
And ideally, you'd want that frequency to be higher anyway.
Yeah, but I think it just gets very complicated because you have to look at, first of all, are CPUs actually designed primarily for gaming? I would say very few are designed specifically with gaming in mind. So then you have to think of this very complicated architecture that really would only be suitable for gaming. And then what games would prioritize the frequency cores versus the cache cores?
But with Intel's Alder Lake architecture, they've essentially done that anyway. That's why we have the P cores and the E cores. If gaming was completely removed from the scene, you almost wouldn't need more than 1 or 2 P cores. I mean, or any. You would just have a CPU littered with E cores because that would be the fastest way to crunch like a rendering task. The performance cores will be useful for things like Photoshop, parts of video editing, for example, not necessarily the encoding portion.
And things that require cutting-edge instruction sets.
Yeah. So, but they would be less important. You could have an E-core only CPU that had 32, 64 cores. That would be a bit of a productivity beast, but would be absolutely woeful at gaming.
Yep.
So it's a balance, and that's what I'm sort of getting at. The 8 P cores more than well and truly has you covered on the gaming front. But basically, you don't want a CPU. You don't want to disconnect high frequency and cache capacity. You want to cram those two things together for optimal performance. You'd be doing yourself a disservice by having low frequency, cache heavy cores with cache light cores at a high frequency. That'd be a disaster of a CPU, in my opinion.